Heard already from my colleagues, SB 292 simply casts a stereotype on individuals as potential drug users. It blames people who are in very difficult and unwarranted circumstances for problems that they didn't invent on themselves. And it gives the impression that they were more likely to use drugs than the general population, and that is not proven to be true. I stand against 292 because the drug testing requirement would be extremely difficult, burdensome for families, difficult for the state to manage, and frankly a waste of our time and resources. Now think about it. In order to qualify for TANF, a single parent of two must make less than $784 a month. That's less than $8,704 a year. And they must have less than $1,000 in assets. Imagine the lifestyle of that family, that childhood, growing up in an environment where your parents have less than $1,000 and can only get less than $10,000 to raise a family. These parents, these children, they need our help, not our scorn, not drug tests. Now, TANF only goes to parents or grandparents of dependent children under the age of 18. So withholding TANF from families that are otherwise eligible hurts the children. And those children can't possibly be blamed for their parents not being able to afford drug testing or afford the illicit drug use that potentially could occur. Now, the total possible benefit for TANF recipients in Georgia tops out at $280 per month. $280 a month. So it's my belief that if only half or a quarter of that money was used to buy food or to buy a coat in the winter or to buy school books, that's money that should be used and should be allowed to be spent on those children. Furthermore, we learned in testimony not too long ago that there are only about 4,000 adults in Georgia who qualify for TANF today. Surely we can find a better way to use our resources than going after this very vulnerable population at a time of greatest need. Quite frankly, I can't understand why the General Assembly is so obsessed with witch hunt for possible drug users among the poor. And it's to the extent that we're willing to deprive perfectly innocent children from very much needed assistance and the opportunity to grow up in a healthy and productive society. So I am firmly against Senate Bill 292, and we must do everything we can to defeat this onerous measure.
I'm back to the original question, and that is, what is this really about? We have members of this General Assembly that appear to be willing to allow political motivation to stand in the way of taking care of the most vulnerable people that we have in this state. Reality is that probably half of the people that we know are maybe 2 or 3 paychecks at the most away from being TANF recipients themselves. And if we don't take care of those that are in the greatest need, we are really failing in our responsibility as public servants for this state. And again, I'm against this piece of legislation. And I'm very emotionally tied to this. I grew up in the projects in New York, in Harlem, New York. I saw a lot of people who were struggling to make ends meet, who were struggling to take care of their families, and they were not using drugs. And so we have to just not allow the assumption that because you are poor, that you are a drug abuser. And then the last point that I want to make is that we are talking in this legislation about illegal drugs. What about all of the people who are using alcohol or some other prescribed medication that are impaired and unable to do the things that we would want them to be able to do? Those people are not being targeted. And we're just targeting the poor. And that's it. And we have got to find another way to take care of the most vulnerable people in this state. With that, again, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank my colleagues for joining me here. And I hope that all of us will leave this room and go find someone that is currently supporting this bill and do what we can to try to turn them around and let them see what reality is. We cannot use our poor as political pawns as we move through this process. And thank you again.
Thank you.